All right, let's get right into it. Because right now, hidden behind all the headlines about global conflict, there's a system that secretly controls how money, power, and oil move around the entire planet. It's called the petrodollar, and honestly, it might be the most important economic story you're not hearing about.
And it all kicks off right here with a crisis that's literally unfolding as we speak. A conflict simmering in the Middle East is threatening to shake the entire global economy to its core. At the very heart of this is a tiny little strip of water, the Strait of Hormuz. It has become the flashpoint for some really serious tensions between Iran, the United States, and Israel. And believe me, what happens here definitely doesn't stay here. And just to give you a sense of scale here, this is absolutely massive. We're not just talking about some random waterway. Almost a fifth of the entire world's oil supply has to pass through this one single choke point every single day. But here's the thing. This conflict isn't just about warships and political posturing. No. Behind all that, something much, much bigger is at stake. It's about the very system that has been quietly powering our global economy for the last 50 years. So, it's time to pull back the curtain on this hidden system. Because if you can understand this, you'll understand the real conflict that's playing out in the Strait of Hormuz, and honestly, all over the world. It's called the petrodollar system. And at its core, it's a deceptively simple agreement. The world's most vital commodity, oil, is priced and sold almost entirely in just one currency, the US dollar. And this creates one simple, unbreakable rule for the whole world. It doesn't matter if you're Japan trying to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, or maybe India buying from Kuwait. You can't just use your own currency. Nope. First, you have to get your hands on US dollars. And this little diagram shows that loop perfectly. So your country needs oil to power everything, right? But to get that oil, you first have to buy or earn US dollars. Then, and only then, can you purchase the oil. Now just imagine that cycle happening every single day, all over the planet. It creates this constant, massive, and kind of artificial demand for one single currency. So how on earth did we get here? How did one country's currency become the mandatory ticket to the global oil market? Well, it all goes back to a secret deal that was struck in a time of serious crisis.
Let's just hop in the time machine and go back to the 1970s. The US dollar was in real trouble. Its value was dropping and inflation was out of control. At the exact same time, the world got hit by a huge oil crisis. This created the perfect storm for the US to make a secret but incredibly powerful deal with Saudi Arabia and the other big oil producers in OPEC. And here's the deal they struck, laid out plain and simple. The US offered military protection and economic stability to these oil-producing nations. In return, OPEC agreed to one groundbreaking condition. They would price and sell all of their oil exclusively in US dollars. This single agreement completely changed the course of economic history. And just like that, with that one deal, the dollar was suddenly granted this invisible, almost unimaginable source of power. Because think about it, now every country needed dollars just to function. And this gave the US some incredible advantages. First, a guaranteed global demand for its currency. Second, other countries had to store all those dollars, usually in US banks. Third, they would then invest their extra oil money back into the US by buying government bonds, which is basically like loaning the US money. And finally, it meant the US could print more money without as much fear of devaluing its own currency. And look, this wasn't just some minor economic tweak. As one source put it, this system single-handedly gave the United States a level of economic and political power that was truly unprecedented in modern history. A really great way to think about it is like a global game of Monopoly. Except in this game, every other player has to pay rent to one player, the US, just to stay on the board. The whole system is basically designed to keep billions of dollars flowing into the US every single day, helping to fund its economy and solidify its global influence. For 50 years, this system was basically untouchable. No one could seriously challenge it. Well, until right now. And that brings us right back to the crisis brewing today in the Strait of Hormuz. So, following these recent strikes, Iran has effectively restricted access to this vital shipping lane, telling vessels to stay away. The disruption immediately sent oil prices jumping, creating all this economic uncertainty around the world. But the real story is what Iran is demanding. And here it is. This is the twist that could change everything.
Iran has basically said, sure, some ships can pass, but there's a catch. The oil has to be paid for not in US dollars, but in Chinese yuan. This is a direct head-on attack on the entire petrodollar system.
This move completely transforms oil from just a commodity into a powerful political and financial weapon. By tying safe passage to payments in yuan, Iran is forcing the world to actually consider a reality where oil is no longer tied exclusively to the US dollar. And look, while this is all still unfolding, the very fact that this is even on the table during an active conflict, well, that just shows you how fragile the old order has become. The global game of money is changing right before our eyes. For over half a century, the petrodollar has been the bedrock of American economic dominance and global power. But now, with this challenge from Iran and this slow but steady shift towards trading oil in other currencies, that foundation is starting to show some really serious cracks. So this all leaves us with the most important question of all. What actually happens if the world's dependency on the US dollar for oil really begins to unravel? I mean, the ripple effects would be just enormous. We could see huge instability in global prices, a fundamental shift in economic power away from the West, and even the formation of new geopolitical alliances. These are impacts that would touch everything, right down to the price of gas in our everyday lives. One thing is for sure, the game is changing, and it's time to start paying attention.